Thank you all for being here today. And whether you're in person in the pew or whether you're sitting at home watching online, really appreciate you taking the time to be here and to let us talk about and think about the ways that our congregation supports God's work through the church. We're going to be talking with Steve Upton, one of our leaders, and kind of going through some ideas of what's going on with our finances right now at the church. So I pray that you'll be listening to God as we talk to you about these things. So Steve, what is the ministry of giving for, and why should the congregation want to be a part of that?
Well, we all know that God blesses us tremendously, and He always provides for us, but He also requires us to give a portion of our blessings back to Him. He gives us plenty of examples in the Bible where giving is good for us, and He tells us that He loves a cheerful giver. So our gifts to God through Arcadia Christian Church allows all of us to support God's work and to further His kingdom in this place.
Is our church doing its part in giving faithfully throughout, despite these hard times and circumstances?
Well, our church focuses tremendously on our responsibility to accomplish God's work. Our second largest expense in our church is our missions that we support around the world, and we believe that faithful giving as a church shows our devotion to God, and that this allows us to be a part of how around the world we support God's work.
Good deal.
And it would be a shame if we had to reduce our giving and support of our missions. It would affect a lot of people everywhere. So I would ask that we all pray about our individual gifts and we pray about the church gifts so that we make sure that we're cheerfully doing our part in giving to God's church.
Good, yeah. Can you explain how finances work at Arcadia Christian Church?
Well, we simply operate under a unified budget, which basically means that all the money that we take in goes into the general fund, and then we have lots of people in our church that manage certain ministry expense items on our finance report.
Well, let's take a look at the financial report specifically and kind of break that down for us. Tell us what's going on with the income and expense report.
Well, when you look at the report, there's 5 columns on it. The first one is our income and our expenses. The second column is what we do monthly. The third column is what we do year to date.
Okay.
And then the fourth column is our annual budget numbers. And over to the right is a percentage that shows us how we're doing each month in relation to what we budgeted and what our actual is.
Okay.
And our budget is kind of made up of 2 pieces. One, our income. Our one piece is the general offerings that the congregation give to the church.
Okay.
And then the second piece would be the miscellaneous section where special things that need to be done, people give to the miscellaneous fund also.
Okay.
The first.
So I'm sorry, on that, on the budget, what's going on in those numbers that we see on that report right now?
Okay. Well, the first 4 numbers I'd like to bring to your attention are all going to be in the year-to-date column.
Okay.
And if you look at the report, it shows that our income so far for this year is $123,594. And that's on page 1. If you go back to the middle of page 2, then you'll see our budgeted expenses. And that number is $119,263. So that tells us we are spending less than we take in. So the people that are managing our accounts are doing a real good job of managing the normal general fund. Now, the other thing that is helping us is that currently we do not pay for a youth minister. And also our fellowship activities has been reduced. So that expense is considerably smaller than it was. You know, we're hoping that when things get back to normal, we all want to fellowship again and we want to have a youth minister. So maybe God is helping us in areas that we're really not thinking he is.
Right.
Because those two items make a big difference in our finances.
Yeah, and you just brought up another impact of COVID-19 on our church is that we are right now greatly reducing the number of events and gatherings that we have, and that does definitely impact our finances as well. So what about that miscellaneous fund? Can you update us on that?
Well, the miscellaneous income was $31,564. That's on page 1. And then you look back on page 2 again, and you see our miscellaneous expenses are $84,323. That's a big gap from our income and what we spent. And these are for non-budgeted items. So some things come up periodically throughout the year that has a large effect on that account. The fact that we had to replace several AC units that we had been babying along for quite some time, and that expense was over $42,000. So that's the main reason you see such a disparity from our miscellaneous income and our miscellaneous expenses.
So the miscellaneous part of the budget really absorbed that hit to a great degree.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And those miscellaneous income and expense categories, you know, that's again where members give above and beyond their normal offerings to support special projects like remodeling of the fellowship hall.
Okay.
And a lot of concrete and awning out there that coming into the fellowship hall. And and we also have projects that we support for certain ministries, the youth group and the ladies group. And that's where that money is run through as miscellaneous, because it's all non-budgeted items.
Okay. How does this all tie into the checking account?
Well, lastly, the checking account, January 1st, we started with a little over $62,000 in the checking account. And as of, the end of August, we have little over $30,000 in our checking account. So that tells us that there's been a slow decline of the cash that we have on hand. And that's something that the Finance Committee and that we would ask everybody to pray about, that trend of cash flow decline.
So the pandemic is really causing our income to slow down quite a bit, both in budgeted and non-budgeted items.
Well, the pandemic has definitely had an impact on our income. And the non-budgeted expenses, as we talked about, also have a major impact on our finances. And it puts all of us and the church in a real uncomfortable position. But that's the same position that everybody in their personal life and at home are experiencing the same kinds of things.
Sure.
One concern that I would point out is just as an example, is that last week, we budget about $4,000 a week as income for the church. And our offering last Sunday was $1,000. So you can see what tremendous effect that this is all having on our income. But what I would request of all of you is to stay informed and review the finance reports monthly. You can pick them up on the shelf behind the info desk, and that will help you better understand what our church financially is going through and why the elders would be considering certain decisions in the future based on finance. But, you know, God's in control, and we're confident that He's going to help us through all of this.
Was there anything else that you would like to say to the congregation about our finances?
Well, we should remember we have a big God, you know, and God is bigger than this pandemic. In fact, God is bigger than anything any of us are ever going to have to deal with in our personal life. And we always need to focus on the fact that God's going to take care of us. He promises He will, and He promises that He'll always do that. So as our church remains faithful in our giving, then we would ask that all of you remain faithful and do the same with your giving. The church really needs a permanent and a consistent increase in our income. And we should all pray for God's help to get us through this difficult time that we're facing today. But when you pray to God and you ask Him for things, you need to be prepared, because God may ask you or put on your heart, you need to give more. He may need us to increase what we're doing to pick up the responsibilities of other people that are less fortunate than us. So the main thing is to remain diligent in your relationship with God and diligent in your giving to God, and that would include both your money and your time. If you have any questions or suggestions, I recommend that you just give me a call, and I'll be happy to talk to any and all of you about anything you would like to learn or discuss about the budget. I want to thank all of you for your time and your attention today to this financial report, and I've been praying that this finance report would be helpful to all of you.
Well, Steve, thank you for your time and for giving us all that information. I really appreciate it. And I know the congregation has wanted the leadership to give them a report on the finances, and I'm sure, like you're saying, this is going to be very helpful to everybody. So thank you for doing that, and thank you, congregation, for your time and listening to us. God bless.